You're nothing but a burden we're forced to feed. My son's words sliced through the room like a bayonet. He didn't lower his voice. He didn't hesitate. He made sure every single person sitting around that table heard him. I could see the smirk on his face as he leaned back in his chair, as if finally saying aloud what he had whispered to others behind closed doors. My wife Eleanor didn't flinch, didn't protest, didn't rise to my defense. Instead, she lowered her eyes almost in shame, though not of him, of me, as though agreeing that I had become nothing more than dead weight. My grandson giggled without understanding the weight of the insult, but the echo of that single word hung over me heavier than the prosthetic strapped to my leg. I did not argue. I did not beg. I simply placed my spoon down on the table. That small metallic sound rang in my ears like the lock of a vault clicking shut. In that instant, I knew the investigation had already begun. They thought they had won, that I was finished, that I had no fight left in me, but they had forgotten one thing. War teaches patience, and patience can be a far sharper weapon than rage. When the will was finally read, it would not be me on my knees. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. Silence filled the dining room in the seconds after his words, though no one dared acknowledge it. My daughter-in-law, Melanie, leaned toward my son and whispered something, her diamond bracelet catching the chandelier's light, as though to remind me she was enjoying luxuries I had earned. My grandson stabbed at his peas with his fork, laughing at nothing, while Eleanor pushed food around her plate, refusing to meet my eyes. The roast smelled dry, the gravy bitter, but it was the taste in my mouth that sickened me most. The taste of betrayal, familiar yet still raw. I have been called many things in my life: soldier, sergeant, husband, father. I carried those titles with pride, some with duty, some with joy, but never in my years. Not on the battlefield, not in the hospital, when I was told I would never walk unassisted again, had I been reduced to such a word, a burden, spoken not by an enemy, but by the very blood I once cradled as an infant. I kept my eyes on him long enough for him to feel it, but not long enough to invite another insult. Silence can be a weapon. In the desert, when a convoy was ambushed, the men who panicked died first. The ones who survived knew how to listen, how to watch, how to wait until the enemy revealed themselves. I had survived war with that lesson carved into me deeper than the scar where my leg used to be. Tonight, that lesson would serve me again. So I waited. My gaze drifted toward the glass cabinet in the corner of the dining room, where a faded photograph still hung. In it I was 24 holes, standing in uniform with Eleanor by my side. Her smile in that photograph was radiant, proud, the smile of a woman who believed in me. I remembered how her hand clung to my arm as though nothing could break me. Back then, Harold Fletcher was more than a name. He was a soldier, a protector, a man with purpose. The night everything changed was seared into me. The night an IED ripped through the earth beneath my boots. It stole my leg, but left my life. A cruel trade I once believed was worth it because it meant coming home to hold my newborn son, to kiss Eleanor's forehead, to believe that survival was enough. I thought sacrifice would be remembered. I thought gratitude would last. But memory fades. Gratitude fades faster, and sometimes family fades with it. The sound of a fork, scraping against a plate, pulled me back to the present. My son leaned forward, arrogance in every movement. "Dad," he said, voice dripping with entitlement, "you should really consider signing those papers. It's for the best." Everyone agrees. Melanie added quickly, like a viper sliding in behind him, "We just want to help, Harold. You can't manage these things anymore. It's too much for you. With your condition, my condition," as though losing a leg was the same as losing a mind. I met her gaze and held it. Behind that rehearsed sweetness was calculation. I'd seen the same look in corrupt officers and insurgents abroad, people who didn't see human beings, only opportunities. I leaned back, keeping my voice even. "You want the house?" My son's jaw tightened. He didn't deny it. That was all the confirmation I needed. I had noticed the whispers, the hushed calls that ended when I entered a room, the odd rearrangement of papers on my desk. Now the pieces began to align. But anger is a reckless ally, and I would not let them see mine. Battles are not won in the moment of insult. They are won in the quiet before the storm. So I excused myself with a politeness that grated more than defiance. "Where are you going?" my grandson asked. "Just stretching my leg," I answered, patting the wooden prosthetic as I stood. He laughed. My son didn't correct him. The hallway mirror caught my reflection as I walked away. A man, gay-haired, stiff, hollow around the eyes. But beneath that reflection lay something harder, sharper, the man who had survived desert shrapnel and death. That man had not died with his leg. He had only been waiting. Inside my study, I closed the door and finally allowed myself to exhale. On my desk sat a dented metal box. Inside it, I had kept documents, ledgers, letters from comrades, pieces of a chessboard I once prayed I'd never need to set again. I unlocked it with the key I always kept close. Everything was in its place. The deed to the house, copies of bank transfers, insurance papers, even letters from Arthur, my old comrade, who had become a lawyer. At the bottom lay a folded flag, handed to me at a brother-in-arms funeral, a reminder of why strategy matters, why patience saves lives. I touched the flag and whispered, "If they want war, they'll get one, but it'll be my kind of war." As I sifted through the papers, I noticed something wrong. The copy of my life insurance policy was gone. My heart thudded in my chest. I never misplaced it, which meant someone had been here. The lock bore no scratches. Whoever it was had either found the key or made a duplicate. That narrowed the suspects to two, my son or Eleanor. Betrayal, I realized, was already underway. This was not just disrespect. This was a strategy against me. The investigation wasn't beginning tonight. It had begun long before. I returned to the dining room, keeping my face calm. The laughter there was hollow, brittle. My son sneered. "Feel better, old man." I smiled thinly. "Better than you think." Eleanor's eyes flickered up for a second. I thought I saw guilt, or perhaps fear. I let it pass. Pressing now would only ruin the game. Instead, I ate a few more bites in silence, memorizing every glance, every smirk, every half-hidden whisper. Evidence lives in expressions as much as it does on paper. Later that night, after dishes were cleared and the house fell quiet, I returned to the study. I opened a fresh notebook and wrote 3 words at the top: plan, then peace. Beneath it, I listed tasks: check safe deposit box, contact Arthur, install a recorder in the dining room, review will drafts. Each note was a plank, laid across dark water. I capped the pen and leaned back, letting silence fill the room. Once I thought silence meant surrender. Tonight, silence became strategy. They believed I was broken, finished a burden. They had forgotten what war taught me: patience and precision. I sat in that silence until the house creaked and the clock ticked past midnight. My leg ached phantom pain where flesh no longer existed, but pain was an old friend. What cut deeper was knowing the enemy now wore my bloodline's face. Yet, as I folded the notebook shut, I felt the calm clarity that came before battle. The first shot had been fired when my son called me He thought it was a victory. He was wrong. It was only the opening salvo, and I was already mapping the battlefield. Sleep did not come easily that night. I lay in bed beside Eleanor, listening to her even breathing, wondering if it was real sleep, or the practiced rhythm of someone pretending. I had lived long enough with soldiers to know the difference between rest and performance. Her back was turned to me, her body curled slightly away, as though I were a stranger. I stared at the ceiling, tracing the cracks like fault lines, knowing somewhere beneath them the foundation was shifting. A missing insurance policy was no accident. It was a signal. Someone had already crossed the line, and the line was drawn inside my own home. I closed my eyes and let memory take me back to a different bed, a different night, the night I returned from overseas, with one leg and a lifetime of ghosts. Eleanor had sat beside me, Then, holding my hand as though she would never let it go, she kissed the scar, whispered that it didn't matter, that she loved me, that our family would be enough, and for a while I believed her. My son was still a boy, then maybe 10 years old, wide-eyed with questions about medals and uniforms. He had looked at me with awe. I used to think that look was permanent, carved into him the way pain was carved into me. But awe curdled into impatience, then into entitlement, and eventually into contempt. I should have seen it sooner. The first signs had been subtle. When he was in college, he'd call me only when he needed money. When I reminded him of responsibility, of service, of carrying his own weight, he would laugh and say, "That was your generation, Dad. Things are different now." I thought it was youth talking arrogance that time would temper. Instead, time hardened it into a belief. After graduation, he came home not to thank me, but to measure what could be his. The way his eyes lingered on the house, on the safe, on every piece of land I owned, it was not admiration, it was a calculation. I rolled onto my side, watching the faint glow of the street lamp spill through the curtains. My wife shifted, murmured something incoherent, then fell back into stillness. I wondered if she had been the one to open that metal box to slide the paper from its place. Was she complicit, or was she simply tired of resisting him? There is a difference between betrayal by choice and betrayal by surrender, but in the end, both cut the same. The clock struck 2, its chime muffled but insistent. I sat up, reached for the notebook on my nightstand, and opened to the page where I had written plan, then peace. My hand shook slightly as I added a note beneath the list. Confirm Eleanor's role. Approach Arthur soon. I underlined soon twice. Then I closed the notebook and forced myself to lie down again. The ache in my leg was nothing compared to the ache in my chest. Morning arrived heavy and gray. Eleanor moved through the kitchen in silence, her eyes on the coffee pot, her words few. "You didn't sleep," she said flatly. Not a question. "Neither did you," I replied. She didn't deny it. She poured 2 cups, placed one in front of me, then walked away before I could thank her. My son appeared, not long after. Crooked face, smug. "Dad, I've got a meeting. If the bank calls, just let them know I'll handle it. Don't sign anything until I'm back." He kissed Melanie on the cheek, and left without looking at me, as if I were an old dog no longer worth acknowledgement. After the door shut, I sat at the table, fingers tapping against the mug. The kitchen smelled of burnt toast, but underneath was something sharper, the scent of discontent, of resentment left to fester. I remembered a morning years ago, when that same kitchen had smelled of pancakes, when my son had burst in wearing his Little League uniform, begging me to come watch his game. I had gone, even on crutches, even with pain burning through me, because that was what fathers did. That boy had once wanted me in the stands. Now the man wanted me out of his way. By noon, I could no longer ignore the gnawing in my gut. I pulled on my coat, adjusted the strap of my prosthetic, and left the house without telling Eleanor where I was going. The cold air bit into me, but it cleared my head.